I'm not ashamed to tell you who I was. Not ashamed. Oh, you had your words for me back then. Your labels, your looks of contempt. You could not live and let live, could you? I had the eye of many of Nain's finest citizens, men from as far Nahum came to purchase Mara's favors. Yes, some of your husbands and sons, you women who taunted me. Why did you think I smiled at you anyway? It was no shame to me. Some of you think we sinners live without conscience. Let me tell you a story. After that, maybe you will realize you are not so high and mighty yourselves. One of the Pharisees in our community is named Simon. What an arrogant crowd are the Pharisees. So rigidly they follow the letter of the law, so blind to the truth and mercy. But Simon is exceptionally pompous and self-righteous. In one instant he would humiliate me with ridicule and even spitting, and in the next breath he would whisper plans to me for our next rendezvous. The man disgusts me. But I needed him. Simon is what I call a collector of celebrities. In any given week he may court one of Herod's puppets, assorted politicians, and various rabbis. It was at Simon's feast that I met most of my customers. Simon's house is built round an open courtyard. There's a garden and a fountain, and in warmer weather, Simon's feasts are held outside. When a rabbi is at such a meal, townspeople often come into the courtyard to listen to his pearls of wisdom. I attended these soirees too, but I didn't enjoy them. Business suffers when too many religious leaders are around. When a guest enters the house, such as Simon's, 3 things are always done. The host gives him the kiss of peace. Cool water is poured over his feet. And incense is burned or rose oil is placed on his head. Simon, with his passion for the law, never misses an opportunity to be socially correct. I was surprised when I heard that this Jesus of Nazareth would be dining with Simon. Jesus is not like Simon's usual guests. Oh, he's still a rabbi. I had no illusions. But he's made a reputation for himself by being precisely opposite of the men in Simon's crowd. Surely Simon would not attempt to curry favor with someone so politically dangerous. I admit I was curious. This was a feast I wasn't going to miss. It would be the talk of the town for weeks. I bound my hair in an especially fine coil that evening, smiling to myself as I worked. Seeing if I could tease this mysterious rabbi into my charms was the kind of challenge I hadn't had in a long time. I strung a vial of perfume around my neck and made my way to Simon's house. I arrived only a moment before Jesus did, and he came into the courtyard flanked by 2 of his disciples and paused. He was a tall, striking man with deep, beautiful eyes. What a catch he would be! The thought quite took my breath away. Jesus looked over the gathering, and then our eyes met, and I flashed him my most seductive smile. And he smiled back at me, but not like the other men smile back at me. In an instant, I was stunned, paralyzed. This Jesus saw me. He saw into me. He knew me. And his eyes said something I couldn't understand, something that completely shattered me. Yet in that smile, in all of its gentle intensity, it only lasted a moment. Then Jesus' attention was called elsewhere. I caught my breath, and in a panic looked around to see if anyone had noticed. Jesus was ushered to his place at Simon's table, and suddenly the crowd grew unusually quiet. Murmurs began to arise. Where was Simon? He should be tending to his guest. After several awkward minutes, Simon sauntered into the courtyard, then sat down opposite end of the table. What was he doing? Where was the kiss of peace, the cool water, the incense and oil? It was unbelievable that Simon would ignore the rules of hosting for any rabbi. Then I understood. I knew Simon's angle. Simon was patronizing Jesus. In contempt and ridicule, he had invited this rabbi, this Jesus, to dinner. I am not a woman given over to violent emotions. One develops a thick skin in my line of work. But the events of the preceding moments had left me completely defenseless, and I found myself crying for this gentle man. Jesus reclined on his couch, and without thinking, I walked to him and knelt down. Hardly aware of what I was doing, I removed Jesus' sandals and began to caress and soothe his feet. My hot tears fell rapidly and became the water with which I cleansed them. I took the alabaster from around my neck and poured it out as well on those gentle feet. I had no towel, so I unbound my hair. With it, I wiped away the grime, the oil, my tears, and my shame. Some commotion was going on around me, but in my anguish, I only knew those feet. The first thing to penetrate my grief was a gentle voice whispering in my ear, "Daughter, your sins are forgiven." Forgiven. My sins are forgiven. What simple, perfect words, words I never dreamed I would hear. I lifted my face in disbelief, and this amazing man, and he smiled at that same mystical smile, and he said to me, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." Jesus was the first man who ever really loved me, and because he loved me, I am no longer Mara of bitterness, but now I'm Mara of joy. The sorrow of my sins is snuffed out, and I live now in love.